gift giving or home decorating and cooking and baking and what have you. It was a time when people traveled miles to visit with one another. A time when there tries to be a bit more warmth and love in the world. The highest point, if you will, when man and woman's hearts would be softened. But as you stop to look at the conditions of our world today, you find they're not different, any different from when Jesus was born. Rome was the mighty power, and either you were a free man or a free woman or a slave. You had no alternate choices. And there was fighting going on there, and they were just as bloody in their battles as we seem to be today. And humankind does not seem to have learned from history. There's one story told of the fact that if the Buddhist nations decided to fight each other, that they would simply put their generals in a room with the chessboard. Whoever won the chess game won the war. That really would be a way of handling things, wouldn't it? Not a bullet was shot from a gun and nobody was hurt, no property was damaged, and the world would carry on just the same. But it seems to me that we don't learn from our history. We don't learn from things of the past. Those who do try to bring love into the world are often in the minority rather than the majority. As we go from day to day, we ask God to help us, to guide us, so that the decisions that we make are sensible ones, ones that are good ones that are going to bring and benefit each other. We have to practice forgiveness and love. Even in our own family circles, we find there is estrangement sometimes, and there are those that we never hear anything about. Just the other day, there was a phone call from a lady who attended, no, I guess she doesn't attend that church at all, but she uses the facilities for weaving, as do many others, and she spends a lot of time there. And the weavers gathered one day to weave, obviously, and to chat and to visit, and halfway through their conversation, she got up and walked out. They were concerned. Well, why did she go? Was she not feeling well? Well, they didn't know what it was. But when we got the phone call, my wife asked her about this, and she said, well, I got so tired of hearing everybody talking about how wonderful Christmas is and how the families are going to get together and how the gifts were. She has no husband, her husband left her, the children are all grown up and they could care less about her. Her mum and dad left for Florida without asking her anything you need, anything you can get. And she has arthritis, I guess, very, very badly. And this is why she does the weaving, because it gets her fingers going. And she said, I just couldn't take it anymore. I guess she gets a little bit of assistance, but the one outfit that gives her assistance really didn't give her any more than the basic necessities. There was no opportunity to buy maybe an extra pie for herself or something else for the house, and she was down, very depressed. So Christmas for her was anything but joyful. She was getting one help from another community, and my wife got on the phone and got our benevolent fund in the church that she goes to come across with some money so that she could have a happier Christmas. Although even with that, I would imagine it'd be kind of lonely. We might have had her at our place, only we're not going to be there each Christmas Day. Our family took pity on us, the wife and I, and we've been invited out for a Christmas dinner. So that was great, hallelujah. But this is not always a joyful, happy time for everybody. And I think if we can remember that, we reach out and try to be more sensitive to the needs of those around us. Maybe we would avoid the conversations or that would bring about a bit of friction, the like of that. So Christ came into the world to make the world a better place. There's an illustration here that I found in a book. I'm always finding illustrations. I'm back feeding somewhere.
Hands on the chest. No, don't.
It's working anyway. It's working. It's still working. Yeah, but it wasn't putting it on the chest that did it. It was Then switched. Good, thank you. This is a typical example of sometimes the Christmas situation. This chap named Bill Lederer wrote to the Admiral of the United States Navy and said, "Dear Admiral MacDonald, 18 people asked me to write this letter to you. Last year at Christmas time, my wife, our 3 boys and I were in France on our way from Paris to Nice in a rented car. For 5 wretched days, everything had gone wrong. On Christmas Eve, when we checked into our hotel in Nice, there was no Christmas spirit in our hearts whatsoever. It was raining and cold when we went out to eat. We found a drab little restaurant shoddily decorated for the holiday. Only 5 tables were occupied. There were 2 German couples, 2 French families, and an American sailor by himself. In the corner, a piano player listlessly played Christmas music. I was too tired and miserable to care. I noticed that the other customers were eating in stony silence. The only person who seemed happy was the American sailor. While eating, he was writing a letter. My wife ordered our meal in French, and the waiter brought us the wrong thing. I scolded my wife for being stupid. Then at the table with the French family on our left, the father slapped one of his children for some minor infraction, and the boy began to cry. On our right, the German wife began berating her husband. All of us were interrupted by an unpleasant blast of cold air. Through the front door came an old flower woman. She wore dripping, tattered overcoat and shuffled in on wet, run-down shoes. She went from one table to another. "Flowers, monsieur? Only 1 franc? Flowers?" No one bought any. Wearily, she sat down at a table between the sailor and us. To the waiter, she said, "A bowl of soup. I haven't sold a flower all afternoon." To the piano player, she said hoarsely, "Can you imagine, Joseph, soup on Christmas Eve?" He pointed to his empty tipping plate. The young sailor finished his meal, got up, putting on his coat, he walked over to the flower woman's table. "Happy Christmas," he said, smiling, picking out 2 corsages. "How much are these?" 2 francs, monsieur." Pressing one of the small corsages flat, he put it into the envelope in the letter that he had written and handed the woman a 20-franc note. "I don't have any change, monsieur," she said. "I'll get some from the waiter." "No, ma'am," said the sailor, leaning over and kissing the ancient cheek. "This is my Christmas present to you." Then he came to our table, holding the other corsage in front of him. "Sir," he said to me, "may I have permission to present these flowers to your beautiful daughter?" In one quick motion, he gave my wife the corsage, wished us a Merry Christmas, and departed. Everyone had stopped eating. Everyone had been watching the sailor. A few seconds later, Christmas exploded through the restaurant like a bomb. The old flower woman jumped up, waving the 20-franc note, shouting to the piano player, "Joseph, my Christmas present, and you shall have half so we can feast together." The piano player began to belt out "God King Wenceslas." My wife waved her corsage in time to the music. She appeared 20 years younger. She began to sing, and our 3 sons joined her, bellowing with enthusiasm. "Gut, gut," cried the Germans, and they began singing in German. The waiter embraced the flower woman. Waving their arms, they sang in French. The Frenchman who had slapped the boy began rhythm with his fork against the glass. The boy, now on his lap, sang a youthful soprano. A few hours earlier, 18 persons had been spending a miserable evening. It ended up being the happiest and the very best Christmas Eve they'd ever experienced. This, Admiral MacDonald, is what I'm writing to you about. As the top man in the Navy, you should know about a very special gift that the new U.S. Navy gave to my family and to me and to the other people in that French restaurant. Because your young sailor had Christmas spirit in his soul, he released the love and joy that had been smothered within us by anger and disappointment. He gave to us Christmas. Thank you, sir, and a Merry Christmas to you too. That is the spirit of Christmas. The carol is number 69, Away in the Manger.